Yo, what's up, you bunch of sweaty grungers? You know who it is. There's Rocksteady at KOTP TV. That's King of the Pit TV. Bada bing, bada boom. We're going to learn about the debut Nirvana record today. We're going to learn about Bleach, alright? So as always, it is Wikipedia. So if you have any disputes with what I'm talking about, let me know, okay? Because I'm learning. And if you know best, I want you to let me know, alright? So Bleach is the debut studio album by American rock band Nirvana, released in '89 by Sub Pop after the release of their debut single Love Pop on Sub Pop in '88. Is it really their debut single because it's a cover? Debatable. I personally wouldn't put a bloody cover out as a debut single, but you know, it didn't go too badly for Nirvana, did it? Nirvana rehearsed for 2 to 3 weeks in preparation for recording a full-length album. The main recording sessions for Bleach took place at Reciprocal Recording in Seattle, Washington between December '88 and January '89. It is the only Nirvana album released on Sub Pop and the only album to feature drummer Chad Channing. Unfortunately forgotten, eh? Chad Grohl really took the spotlight, didn't he? Bleach did not chart upon initial release, but was received well by critics. When reissued internationally by Geffen Records in '92, following the success of Nirvana's second album, Nevermind, Bleach peaked at number 89 on the Billboard 200, number 33 on the UK albums chart, and number 34 on the Australian albums chart. In '09, Sub Pop released the 20th anniversary edition of Bleach, featuring a live recording of a '90 Nirvana performance in Portland, Oregon, as bonus material. Bleach had sold 40,000 copies in North America before the release of Nevermind. It had since been certified platinum by the RIAA and has sold more than 1.9 million copies in the United States alone. It is Sub Pop's best-selling album to date and is unlikely to be surpassed by competitors. So earlier we read that Kurt wasn't too happy about the promotion Sub Pop did. Felt like Bleach was kind of shelved in the shadow of other releases by Sub Pop. I wonder if Sub Pop really invested a little more time and backing to this record. It could like just bloody fizz like a firework and just shoot for the skies, you know what I mean? It ended up being Sub Pop's best-selling album, it states. Frontman Kurt Cobain's death in April '94 also led to a resurgence in the album's popularity, reaching number 1 on the Top Pop Catalog Albums chart. In April 2019, Bleach was ranked number 13 on Rolling Stone's 50 Greatest Grunge Albums list. There we go again, Rolling Stones. Every single day, every single article, they've got a list of some sort. The 50th Greatest Grunge Album. Who makes, you know what I mean, who's the tastemaker? I don't care. I'll tell you the 50th greatest grunge albums. I don't need you to do it for me. Recording. After the release of its debut single Love Buzz on Sub Pop, Nirvana practiced for 2 to 3 weeks. Yep, even though Sub Pop had only requested an EP. The main sessions for Bleach took place at Nirvana began recording with a 5-hour session on December 24th, '88. The band recorded again on December 29th to the 31st. And on January the 14th and 24th. Very accurate details here. 3 of the album's songs, Floyd the Barber, Paper Cuts and Downer, were recorded during a previous session in '88 featuring Dale Crover on drums. Despite attempts to re-record them with new drummer Chad Channing, the band ultimately decided to remix the versions recorded with Crover for the final version of Bleach. Big Long Now was omitted from the album because Kurt Cobain felt there was already enough slow, heavy stuff on Bleach and he didn't want that song to go out, according to Endino. The album was edited and sequenced, but Sub Pop head Bruce Pavitt ordered that the album be completely resequenced. The record was further delayed for several months until Sub Pop was able to secure sufficient funds to issue it. Resequencing, I assume that's in regards to the sequence of the songs, right? The track order. I have never heard of disputes on resequencing, so to speak. I've never heard of that before. That's very interesting. I don't even know if that's I don't even know if that literally is why. You gotta let me know. Lead singer Kurt Cobain felt pressured to create music for Bleach that conformed to the grunge music style favoured by his record label and the contemporary Seattle music scene. The album is regarded as quite negative and bleak. Cobain claimed that most of the lyrics were written the night before recording whilst he was feeling pissed off and that he did not regard them highly. And Dino billed the band 30 hours of recording at $606.17. Jason Everman, a guitarist who was impressed by Nirvana's demo with Dale Crover, supplied the money. He briefly joined the group as second guitarist. Everman was credited as a guitarist on the album sleeve and is the other guitarist on the cover of the album, even though he did not perform on the album. Bassist Chris Novoselic explained, "We just wanted to make him feel home in the band." Now, this is interesting because, correct me if I'm wrong, right? That if you pay for the record in its entirety, you own the masters, right? Unless you are contractually obliged to do otherwise. But the label's job tends to be to fund the record in order to possess the record and the master copyright. So obviously they've signed the contract with Sub Pop, which allows them the rights. Like, that's the be all and end all. But it's quite bizarre because normally the label's going to cover the studio costs because that's part of signing a contract and getting a recording deal, unless it's strictly distribution. And if it was strictly distribution, that would mean legally Jason Everman should own the masters of the recordings, right? Which didn't end up being the case. So that's quite interesting. Music. According to Cobain, the music on Bleach conformed with the grunge genre Sub Pop heavily endorsed. There was this pressure from Sub Pop and the grunge scene to play rock music, Cobain said, and noted that he stripped it down and made it sound like Aerosmith. I'm sure it's a joke to some degree. Cobain also felt he had to fit the expectations of the grunge sound to build a fan base and hence suppressed his arty and pop songwriting traits while crafting the record. Chris Novoselic said in a 2001 interview with Rolling Stone that the band had played a tape in their tour van that had an album by the Smithereens on one side and one by the band Celtic Frost on the other, and noted that the combination probably played as an influence as well. The songs were described as deliberately bleak, claustrophobic and lyrically sparse, with none of the manic derangement or sense of release of the live performance. Cobain said that the song structures were one-dimensional and said that he sought to present a more polished and urbane side of himself. Got a little factoid here in regards to a couple of numbers. About a Girl was written by Cobain for his then girlfriend Tracy Miranda. Writer Chuck Crisafulli said that it perfectly captures the rage, hurt and residual tenderness of a fractured, failing romance and packs it into verses and choruses that are unstoppably catchy. Negative Creep features Cobain's frantic wails and screaming on top of a repetitious and heavy grunge riff. I'm a negative creep, I'm a negative creep, I'm a negative creep. Bleach was heavily influenced by the Seattle-based sludge metal band scene of the late 80s. What is sludge metal? Let's find out, people. It's an extreme subgenre of heavy metal that originates through combining elements of doom metal and hardcore punk. Cool. Typically harsh and abrasive. I think I Hate God is classified as sludge, right? And so is Crowbar, I think. And author Gillian G. Garr wrote that Bleach has its share, some would say more than its share, of dirty sludge, and Sub Pop describes the single Love Buzz / Big Cheese to be heavy pop sludge. Describing the various songs on Bleach, Christopher Sanford wrote, Paper Cuts includes a folk-influenced melody and ponderous rhythm of an early Led Zeppelin number. Mr. Mustache addressed itself to Nirvana's male fans. Downer showed the same exceptional content for the group's audience. Sanford felt School, which features only 4 lines of lyrics, was memorable for its chorus that served as the rip, while Scoff is a parting salvo at Cobain's parents. The Negative Creep was written by Cobain about himself. According to Sanford, About a Girl has a chiming, melodic and ironic chorus. About a Girl, potentially one of the best tracks on the record in my personal opinion. In Sounds magazine, Keith Cameron said the song was exhilarating and it was exciting because that was the nature of the music, but there was also an impalpable sense of danger that this whole thing could fall apart any second. That's the punk element, innit? That's the hardcore. There was never any relaxation from the first note to the last. In his book Nirvana, The Stories Behind Every Song, Chuck Crisafulli writes that the song stands out in the Cobain... Which song? I don't know what song he's referencing. In one of his first interviews, Cobain told Sounds journalist John Robb, "When I write a song, the lyrics are the least important thing. I can go through 2 or 3 different subjects to the song, and the title can mean absolutely nothing at all. Sometimes I try to make things harder for myself, just to try and make myself a bit more angry. Try out a few subconscious things, I suppose, like conflicts with other people. I don't think he's used subconscious correctly there, but most of the lyrics on Bleach album are about my life in Aberdeen. In '93, Cobain told Spin that on Bleach he didn't give a flying F about what the lyrics were about and claimed that 80% of the lyrics were written the night before recording. He was often still working on the words on the drive to the recording studio. He explained it was like, I'm peed off. Don't know what it's about, let's just scream negative lyrics, and as long as they're not sexist and don't get too embarrassing, it'll be okay. I don't hold any of those lyrics dear to me. Nirvana biographer Michael Azerrad noted that nevertheless, many of the songs on the album reflected Cobain and various incidents in his life. Mr. Mustache was inspired by Cobain's dislike of macho behavior, while School was a critique of the Seattle music scene, particularly Sub Pop. There you go, a little bit of in-house drama for you there. So let's keep moving. We've got the release and promotion coming up, which, you know, before we even jump into it, Cobain didn't seem too happy about it when we read the last little bit. So the release and promotion. The album cover was photographed by Cobain's then girlfriend Tracy Miranda during a concert at the Rico Muse Art Gallery in Olympia. On February 25th, 1989, Nirvana played at venues on the West Coast, including the University of Washington. The group began its first European tour, a double headliner with the band Tad at the Riverside venue in Newcastle upon Tyne on 23rd of October 1989. Never heard of Tad. On December 3rd, they played a triumphant set at the London Astoria. Christopher Sanford related, when the style pundits noted Cobain's patent lumberjack shirts and ugly 50s geometric pattern jersey, see an example of low couture chic, they missed the point that flannel shirts and sweaters were everyday dress in the marine climate of the Northwest. Cobain took note and said that he never intended to start a fad or act as a role model. How mad, he was just being himself. Goes to show, doesn't it? You don't need a gimmick, just be yourself, and if you've got that pizzazz, that's the way it goes, isn't it? The title of the album refers to the 1980s era public health posters, which urged heroin injectors to use bleach to clean their needles to prevent HIV transmission. Interesting concept. You know, these great records, there's a story behind everything. The album's working title was Too Many Humans. It was renamed Bleach after Cobain found an AIDS prevention poster while Nirvana was driving through San Fran. The poster advised heroin addicts to bleach their needles before use, featuring the slogan, "Bleach Your Works." In Australia, Bleach was released on Waterfront Records and reissued on various coloured books and coloured vinyl prior to '92. Due to an increase in dissatisfaction with Everman over the course of the Bleach tour, Nirvana cancelled the last few dates and drove back to Washington. No one told Everman he was fired at the time, while Everman later claimed that he actually quit the group. Although Sub Pop did not promote Bleach as much as other album releases, it was a steady seller. However, Cobain was upset. In April '92, following the success of Nirvana's second album, Nevermind, Sub Pop released a remastered version of Bleach on LP, CD and cassette. Geffen Records handled the international release. The CD version was packaged in a cardboard fold-out case that included a bonus booklet filled with photos of the band from '87 to '90. For the 20th anniversary edition of the album, Sub Pop released on November 3rd, 2009, a Dulux reissue of Bleach featuring a March 2009 remastering from the original tapes by George Marino and a live recording of a 90s show at Portland, Oregon's Pine Street Theatre. Everman is no longer given credit on the album, but can still be seen on the front cover and is given a special thanks in the booklet. That's bleak. They gave My Man a credit on the original. Why would you reissue the record and not continue to give My Man a credit? You're revising history. If that's what they chose to do, who's made that decision? That's what I want to know. Because I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like that. I don't like that. If you were a participant, you know what? Normally I'd say, well, if he's done nothing on the record, blah, blah. But he paid for the record. The guy paid for the record. I think he should have his credit. Let's have a look at the reception. Bleach did not sell well, but received positive reviews from critics when it was first released. Became a moderate hit on college radio and the underground/DIY circuit. According to Charles M. Young in the new Rolling Stone album guide in NME, Edwin Pouncey gave Bleach an 8 out of 10 rating and wrote, "This is the biggest, baddest sound that Sub Pop have so far managed to unearth. So primitive that they managed to make label mates Mudhoney sound like Genesis. Nirvana turn up the volume and spit and claw their way to the top of the musical garbage heap. Melody Maker reviewer Push deemed Nirvana the only Sub Pop act to date whose songs consistently equal the standard set by their mates Mudhoney. First and More of Sonic Youth was impressed by the album, finding it primal and the songwriting completely melodious yet also punk. And during the mastering of Sonic Youth's 90 album Goo, Moore expressed his desire for a sound similar to that of Bleach." In a retrospective review for AllMusic, Stephen Thomas Erlewine opined that Kurt Cobain illustrated signs of his considerable songcraft on Bleach, particularly on the minor key ballad About a Girl, I Agree, and the dense chum of Blue. Summarising the album as a debut from a band that shows potential but haven't yet achieved it, author Dave Thompson states in 2000 that history wouldn't hear a word against the album, but added that if one just came down from a few decades on Mars, 42 minutes of growly lo-fi probably wouldn't change your life too much. Robert Christgau wrote in The New Yorker, "Familiar now with Cobain's extraordinary gift, we can hear it loud and clear on the '89 debut album, Bleach. Cobain's gigantic, goofy bass-playing buddy Chris..." Is this guy Chris Novoselic a big guy? Everyone's referring to him as just some big dude. Added drollery to the band's chaotic irreverence. Krasko later commented that while he found Andino's production way too dry for grunge, a way of music that benefits from extra sputum, I don't know what the hell that is, he nonetheless considered Bleach a major album. Anthony Carew from About.com said that Bleach defined the entire decade of the 90s and argued that while Nirvana's later albums were more widely acclaimed because the bigger cultural impact and were generally more accomplished, the band's essence was at its most essential on the debut. I kind of agree. Yeah, the spirit and the soul of what Nirvana was and the foundation of Nirvana is definitely there in Bleach, even though I believe the record that came after was the best record and was leagues ahead, and the record that came after that, they started to dry up and bloom in a artistic sense as opposed to like a sellout songwriting sense. I do think Bleach is to be taken very seriously as what Nirvana were at the core. Personally, before Nevermind was released, Bleach had sold 40,000 copies in North America. The 92 re-release of the album was more successful on the charts, with Bleach eventually reaching number 89 on the Billboard 200, number 33 on the UK album charts, 34 in Australia, number 22 on the Finland charts. Kurt Cobain's death in 94 also led to a resurgence of popularity. Yep. Okie dokie dokie, and it's still Sub Pop's best-selling album to date. So there was 11 numbers on it. Bonus tracks on the reissue was Big Cheese and Downer. When we move on to the 20th anniversary bonus tracks, you had the Pine Street Theatre live performance recorded on February the 9th, 90, which included Intro School, Floyd the Barber, Dive, Love Buzz, Spank Through, Molly's Lips, which was a cover of the Vaselines, never heard of the Vaselines, Sappy, Scoff, About a Girl, Being a Son, and Blue. Who's Being a Son? Have I heard? I never heard Being a Son because I didn't listen to the Blue EP. Quite interesting how they did a song called Being a Son, and then Jane's Addiction did Had a Dad. I liked that. So a couple of notes. Love Buzz was replaced by Big Cheese on the 89 UK release, but included on the 92 UK CD reissue. Big Cheese was originally the B-side of Love Buzz. Downer is included on the 90 CD, but not the 90 cassette. Yeah. And as far as credits are concerned, we got Kurt Cobain, credited as Kurt Cobain, vocals, guitar. Chris Novoselic, credited as Chris Novoselic on bass. Chad Channing on drums, Jason Everman guitar, pictured in the photo cover and credited, but he did not perform on the album. Additional personnel, we got Dale Crover, who did drums on Floyd the Barber, Paper Cuts and Downer, and the backing vocals on Downer. We got Jack Endino, who was the producer, Tracy Miranda, who did photography and was also Kurt Cobain's girlfriend at the time. Charles Peterson, photography. Charles has got his own page. So he's well known for his work with the Seattle independent record label Sub Pop. Interesting. Lisa Orff on design, Jane Higgins execution. So I have no idea what execution means. Something in regards to the industrial side potentially. So next we're going to continue on and check out the history from here on, where we go to Nevermind and the mainstream breakthrough. Hold on tight, people. Hold on tight.